Good evening and welcome to this broadcast of Black Talk Radio News. My name, of course, is Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. It is February the 10th in this year they call 2023. And I'm kind of really excited to bring an old family member. I mean, I guess we can call Tag family, right? Definitely part of the abolitionist family. So the longtime listeners, y'all family too, right? So y'all know Tag. Y'all heard him on New Abolitionist Radio. He also had a podcast called Intercoms, and so he's no stranger to you, or at least he shouldn't be. And I actually did meet Tag. You know, I interviewed hundreds of people, and talked to many others through digital radio, through the internet. And he's one of the few I've actually met in person, and we met at a historic, Black History Month. I definitely would say that the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March that happened on August the 17th in 2017, that definitely count as Black History, part of Black August, actually. And so that's where I met Tag, was in Washington, D.C. at Lafayette Park, right across from the White House. And it was a really, great event. We were there for the prisoners and for something very, very sad and something that should make you mad. And that's because, we all recognize as abolitionists, 21st century slavery exists. 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery. And of course, through New Abolitionist Radio, we meticulously went through every state constitution, and each one of them had an exception clause at that time. But fast forward now, I think there's 8 states with 4 more abolishing slavery in their state constitutions. And before I bring Tag in, let me say this though, because our community is kind of divided on politics. And I understand people's skepticism when it comes to participating in that people activity area, as Mr. Fuller says. Now, I have come to the conclusion that that area covers all other ones, that it regulates, pass laws, everything. I mean, sex, right? There's laws about who you can have sex with, um, war, economics. I mean, just everything. But politics controls all of that. You can pass legislation, pass ordinances, put rules in place, and affect every one of those areas. Okay, so it's very important. And when I first started doing New Abolitionist Radio, not first doing it, but when Max Partis became a part of New Abolitionist Radio, he introduced himself to me as an anarchist. He didn't believe in voting. Okay, and I ain't press him on that. And I always say, well, I'm registered to vote and I don't miss a vote. Cost me 10 minutes of my time, if that, depending upon if you go early voting or not. But now he's part of an organization that's using the ballot box, which of course you got to have voters to vote on the ballot. So now he's part of an organization that's using politics as a tool to get anti-slavery initiatives on state ballots. That's changing constitutions. That's historic, and it doesn't get the coverage that it deserves. It doesn't get the people who are doing the work don't, get their flowers. So I got to give it to them. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to stress the importance of politics, especially when it comes down to the local level with some stuff that's going on with young men that they murdered, the police, the slave catchers murdered. And I don't use that word lightly. The video evidence and the other forensic evidence suggests that my home county that they murdered Jason Lipscomb. And now they're trying to put Marvin McCaskill into 21st century slavery for something that he didn't even do, that looks like a setup. But y'all can follow on Facebook. Go to Gaston County Community Talk. Follow that page. That's where I post news reports and programs on that page. But all of that politics. Okay, all of that controls all of that at the local level. The slave catchers are controlled by it. But tonight, though, like I said, Tag don't really need an introduction. He's the abolitionist, also a student, and he's joining us tonight. And he has been a part of our family going back, and Tag can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 2017, I'm gonna say that year that we had that march. He might have been listening to New Abolitionist radio before then. I just don't recall. I'm getting older. I'm not old, but I'm getting older. But he has recently been working with the Spirit of Mandela Coalition, and they're working and I quote, to help advance the struggle against genocide. The Spirit of Mandela Coalition has been organizing to build a People's Senate. Now, there's going to be a webinar not this Saturday. When is the 18th? It might be, yeah, not tomorrow, but the next Saturday, February the 18th at noon. And you can register. We got on blacktalkradionetwork.com all the links where you can go register for this webinar or use the QR code, which is posted there as well. So without further delay, let me bring on Tag, and he can tell me how long he been part of the Black Talk Radio Network family. What's up, Tag?
Peace, Brother Scotty. Ideally, the vocals are coming through clearly. It's been in and out. Some of that was getting a little bit distorted for me, but it was sounding clear toward the end. Y'all can hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, it was definitely before then, as far as working with and connecting with Black Talk Radio Network and the Black Talk Media Project, given that, before we were able to link up, at the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March, was doing some kind of more, some work in terms of, we were putting together some of the BTR community pages, for example,
yeah,
and other work like that. So I'm gonna say at least closer to maybe 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. It's been a good minute.
Almost a decade, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, Tag, before we jump into this stuff, what are your thoughts, man, on any progress the New Abolitionist movement has made in that time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, tremendous progress is what I would say. Ideally, some of y'all may have had a chance to peep out our premiere installment of About the People, a broadcast also coming out of Spirit of Mandela. And one part of what came up during one of the segments of that broadcast, we had a chance to really just kind of make space and commune with Brother Jaleel Muntakim, longstanding freedom fighter, veteran Panther, and Black Liberation Army member, and one of the co-founders of Spirit of Mandela. And that was part of what emerged in our discussion there, is that there's really been a tremendous resurgence of abolitionist work in these past several years. And of course, it could always be more. We would always love to see more heads embracing abolitionism, recognizing that enslavement is still going on in the U.S. all day, every day. But since if we're looking at even just the last 10 years or several years, it's been tremendous. The level, the furthering of people's awareness of the issues, and the fact that now the other side has to resort to all kinds of different tactics to suppress the information and to disconnect us from these realities. So in my opinion, it's been huge, the growth of the abolitionist movement. And of course, New Abolitionist Radio has to really be pointed toward as a key element of that, as far as really just staying on the mission of recognizing and exposing that all roads lead to slavery.
Word. And so I think about it like this though, Tag. I had no idea that I would live long enough to see states change their constitution on the issue of slavery, where, you know what I'm saying, there was no political speak. It was just straight up language. Should slavery be legal in this state? And so what are we up to now? 7, 8 states, you know?
Yep. It would be 7 if I'm not mistaken, as far as since Colorado, right? Because it would be Colorado, Utah, Nebraska. There were, if I'm not mistaken, we were at 3 going into what was being termed the Freedom 5 this past cycle,
Right.
And then 4 out of those 5 were successful. So I'll double check on that. I would want to confirm, but if I'm not mistaken, we're at 7.
Now, there's also legislation in Congress with co-sponsors to change the 13th. And right now, I'm just getting a mental image of in Lafayette Park that day, and the brother who was speaking, and he kept saying his thing was amend 13. Now, do you remember that, brother?
Absolutely. I still picture that refrain.
Yeah, your line is kind of breaking up on me, Tag, and I think it might be this particular line you called into. I don't know if it's yours, but can I call you at this number that you called in from? I'm gonna call you from a different line.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and hang up, and I'll call you on that line. Y'all bear with me, but his audio is really bad, and I think it's what he called into. So I'm going to call him and see if we can get a better connection using some different software. Might have to turn that volume down. Tag, you there?
Yeah.
That's a lot better, isn't it?
Is that coming through clear?
Yes. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Definitely.
All right, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this line here. Well, people can still call in if they have a question. Let me not do that. Perhaps they'll have better luck. But the telephone number, which I should have been giving out, is 717-908-1834, and the code is 269-626. 269-626. Again, that telephone number, if you have a question for Tag or me, you can give us a call at 717-908-1834, and the code is 269626. And so before I had to reconnect with you, Tag, on a different line. Yeah, we were talking about the young man. He had a yellow sign with black letters, said amend 13. And you know, and that's cool. But as we chopped it up, you know, about that, you know, when I say we, I'm talking about the new abolitionist movement in general. We had these conversations on radio programs, over the web. However, we came to the realization that you can't amend a constitutional amendment. You have to abolish it and replace it. And there's legislation right now in Congress to do just that. I cannot stress that I didn't think I would be allowed to see this much movement on the issue by people in the system. That's what's astonishing. The grassroots always been there, whether it was a small group or people, or maybe it was just the prisoners, Mr. Lee Wood, who wrote the book Prison Slavery back in the 70s, you know, or whether it is all the abolitionists we have today. It was a lot of people at several different rallies on August the 17th, 2017 around the nations. And I heard they were well attended, but a lot of people traveled to DC, man, spent money, for lodging, transportation, and all that. And so I definitely had to say they was committed, and that's where I met you. But did you think, Tag, we would have seen that much movement within the system?
Within the system, I would say not. I always look to stay optimistic, especially about our the movement work, revolutionary work, and so I'm not surprised that the movement has pushed forward and that more heads are getting on board with abolitionism and connecting those dots. But yeah, from the officials and electives and all of this, I wouldn't have expected that much traction in these few years. But it's a testament to it's a testament to a number of different factors. Of course, just the dedicated organizing work and agitation work and education work. And it's also just a testament to the fact that ultimately, the truth is going to be final when it's said and done. And so some of these officials, elected and such, they're apparently seeing the writing on the wall, and they don't want to end up on the slavery side of things, historically, when it's all said and done.
Word. The slavery side of history. Well, those Republicans in Louisiana sure didn't care. You know what I'm saying? And they was like, man, if we do this, if this goes through, these prisoners might be able to sue. That's basically what they said, straight up. And
Yep.
so they poured all their money into the propaganda campaign to get people to vote against it. And just think about that. The majority of the people who vote are I would say on the bottom of the class totem pole. Would you not say that? But even if they in the middle class is heavily affected by aspects of prison slavery as well. So these are, again, people voting against their own interests. So I guess they think they'll never be a slave, or they'll never be the one to get shot by a slave catcher. It's just sad, man. But I'm like you, I'm gonna stay positive about it, because 4 out of 5 states changed their constitutions to finally outlaw slavery in by way of their constitutions. So, Tag, the spirit of People Senate. Now, in the material that's being promoted, is being called a historic initiative to put decision making in the hands of the people through coordinated strategic action. The People Senate will be a national cohesive network reflective of poor and working class communities across the United States, its colonies and territories. The People Senate is uniting with all willing to work together to protect, champion, and uphold the human rights of Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples, thus ensuring the human rights of all people. And so, again, those listening, you can get the information for the link to register for the webinar. You got the QR code there you can scan with your device. But yes, you can go to blacktalkradionetwork.com in the description for tonight's show. So Tag, that now let's break it down in the layman terms. Let me see, because the only similar thing I think I've ever actually know that happened was the indigenous people of Hawaii had voted to restore their kingdom, the Kingdom of Hawaii, which was colonized by the United States by the barrel of a gun, and that's not an exaggeration. And they voted, and this was during the Obama administration, and they voted to get their country back, but they haven't got their country back, and I haven't heard anything else about it. But they took, it was a people's initiative, and they voted. So, had you ever heard of that, and how is this similar or different?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I recall BTR covering that.
Yes,
more
we
so
did.
More so than most spots. So yes, I definitely do recall that. and it was very much an encouraging development. And I trust and I trust and will be happy to find out that those efforts are continuing. But as with you, I have not heard any updates about that since, and can only imagine that these same colonizing forces, that were hell bent on colonizing Hawaii in the first place, and doing everything that they could to strip those heads of sovereignty, or did the kind of dirty tricks that they do to take some of the energy out of those efforts. But I have heard of some positive development from that region more recently. I just haven't heard anything about that particular resolution.
Yeah,
now,
I know a couple of people I could reach out to. As you noted, I have had activists from Hawaii on Black Talk Radio News in the past, and I'll reach out to them because I would like to know. Wouldn't you like to know?
Absolutely, and I would love to keep in touch with them as well and see, what their thoughts are on involving with the People's Senate as well.
Okay.
Because this is not just an initiative that's only focused on the domestic U.S., but it's territories as well. So we have comrades working out of some of the territories that the U.S. has laid claim to through colonization, and so we got to build with our family out in Hawaii as well.
So now I know during the webinar, which again will be Saturday, February the 18th, at 12 o'clock, and that's noon. Again, they can register at blacktalkradionetwork.com. Of course, we'll share this on all our social media, and people can register. But I know they'll have a lot of Q&A sessions with that. But in layman terms, man, using your words, tell us what the People's Senate is to you. What does it look like from your perspective, this initiative that you're a part of? Absolutely.
What I'll say is this development of the People's Senate is the most, it's the most, I would say, inspired organizing effort that I've ever been a part of, in the sense that, so let me take a step back before we get into the People's Senate, because of course the People's Senate flows out of Spirit of Mandela and more particularly the tribunal against genocide, which occurred in October of 2021. Okay, so that tribunal found the U.S. guilty of 5 charges of genocide, and on top of that, the overarching charge of genocide itself. And so out of that, and now as you know, with movement people, it's a question of just hitting the ground running. So out of that, of course, we were very pleased at the outcome, which we expected, that the U.S. would be found guilty, and it was certainly an inspiring and needed set of testimony and cultural connection and historical connection and all of that. So, but rather than just celebrate that fact and say, yes, the U.S. is found guilty of genocide and keep it moving, the whole focus was, what do we do with this energy that we've built and with this collectivity that we're working with to actually counter that genocide that is still ongoing? So just because the U.S. was found guilty of the genocide doesn't mean that they're just going to fall back from doing it, right? Because that's just how they get down. And so what the People's Senate is doing now is weaving that network, putting together across these states and these territories a coordinated effort to counter that genocide. Because the view of Spirit of Mandela and those comrades that we welcome to build this People's Senate with us, because it's a communal effort. This is not something that's coming top down where Spirit of Mandela says, here's the People's Senate, here's who's on the Senate, and join us. It's not like that at all. And that's part of why I find it so inspiring, and why I feel so certain that this is the vehicle that's needed at this time.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, you were at the beginning when abolitionism really started to take off again, modern abolitionism and stuff. But I kind of felt that way about that movement as well, that it was no CEO, there was no, director of communications, there was no, legal defense fund or anything like that, and that it was just different organizations and individuals utilizing resources to, do the work of abolition.
Absolutely. Yeah, this most recent iteration of the abolitionist movement, exactly. And as we know, each time we figure out a lot and we build, and then then some other things occur. So I would say similarly, it was over 70 years ago now, when the U.S. was charged with genocide. We charged genocide, right? With William Patterson, and so many other heads, Paul Robeson, so it's a question of taking that momentum that's been built, taking the work that has already been done, and just continuing to push it forward. And so part of what the People's Senate is focused on doing is taking the reality of the genocide that the U.S. is conducting, recognizing that this is an untenable situation of governance, particularly for us who are Black, Brown, and Indigenous, who are suffering the maximum brunt of that ongoing genocide. And we say we can't possibly tolerate governance where it's genocide for profit on our backs and necks. And so what are we going to do about it? We have to seek out alternatives to a mode of governance, to a system that has no interest in relating to us on any other level besides genocide for profit. And so the People's Senate is keeping our eyes, ears, senses out toward all of the excellent work that's already going on across the U.S. and these territories, and looking to coordinate those efforts in such a way that we can really mass that energy, that focus, that work, that organizing, mass it toward specific initiatives, specific interventions where we can start to put some severe dents into this genocidal system, while at the same time living with one another and building with one another in an alternative mode that is not a genocidal one. That's ultimately what the People's Senate is about.
And can you tell us who will some of the teachers be? Those who will be, or hosting or moderating?
Absolutely. So we have Brother Sekou Odinga, also long-standing freedom fighter and revolutionary, and Black Liberation Army and Black Panther veteran. We have another long-standing revolutionary fighter, Sister Johanna Fernandez. Dr. Fernandez will be one of the speakers. We'll hear from Brother Jihad, another veteran Panther and BLA member. We'll be hearing from Siste Kui, another long-standing freedom fighter and just major champion of political prisoners, prisoners of war. So it's a full slate in terms of heads that will be addressing that webinar. But
all those names are familiar to me. So I got to make sure I register, because you're talking about some intellectual heavy hitters right there.
Absolutely. And at the same time, those names that we recognize and those long-standing fighters are going to be right side by side with names that perhaps we don't recognize.
Okay.
Heads that that maybe we don't know their names yet, but we will get to know one another because they're doing the work on the ground. And so that's central to the People's Senate. as an organizing mode. It's not, we're really looking to in a horizontal way, in a way that connects heads that are doing the work, and really and uplifting that work, recognizing the work that goes on, so that it's not a question of who is the name, or who is what group is seen as the vanguard group or what have you.
Right.
But it's about all of these groups, all of these collectives are doing important work. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be able to see one another and connect with one another, so that we're that much stronger when we start initiatives like overturning this enslavement that is ingrained in the U.S. Constitution, for example. So but there are so many other levels of struggle that we need to focus in on against this genocidal system. Completely including, of course, the enslavement of our people. So that's a lot of work for us to do at once, and we believe strongly and know that we can do that work at once we have a coordinated space where we can link up with one another, share tactics, share strategies, and build in that way, so that we're turning our requests into demands that really have that behind it, that verve and that strength behind those demands.
Yeah, to make them happen, like I've been telling heads here, again, I understand people don't want to vote. I understand that. And neither party, what I'm saying, is really a party of freedom. In my opinion, I haven't heard Joe Biden or any top Democrat talk about, hey, guess what? We need to change the 13th Amendment of the Constitution because Lincoln got it wrong. He made concessions to the traitorous Confederates who tried to destroy us, and allowed them to keep practicing slavery through this loophole, which then led to the black. I don't hear none of that. You know what I'm saying? And forget about it when it comes to the Republican Party. Like Republicans, they have their little infight, and they like to call one another rhino, Republican in name only. But the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party. So as far as I'm concerned, you're all a bunch of rhinos because you ain't pushing abolitionists, and abolitionism, not standing for human rights. And so I tell people, though, the only way that we're going to alleviate the pressure that is on us right now, again, they just shot a 20-something-year-old, 22, I think he was 22, 23-year-old father in a black neighborhood, over 40 shots, and then it looks like when his car crashed 100 yards from where they opened fire, they ran up. Witnesses say he got out and was on the ground because he'd been hit, and then they put 2 more shots. And the shell cases, video of the shell cases, and they have cleared these slave catchers for duty. So we fighting right in the street, and Tyree Nichols is happening everywhere, and so we have to organize against it. We have to stop just doing cultural stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to organize and operate in the people activity area of politics, like recruiting and training our young people, or educating our young people on this while they're in high school, so that we can then run them as candidate for these local office, the county commissioner, the mayor, these little towns and what have you. And so I just don't see us doing that. I'm speaking here locally. We're not doing that. We good for a Juneteenth event, a Black History cultural event, wine, dinner, entertainment. You know what I'm saying? But where is the organizing to end slavery and the murder of people right here in our county? So
yeah, 100,000%. And when you speak of the culture, that's part of what we need to do is exactly. It can't just be about a cultural event. The culture itself needs to be a revolutionary culture, one that is widespread.
Struggle. When has our culture, and when I say our culture, I'm speaking specifically of the people we call African Americans. I am a Pan-Africanist, but I'm speaking, we talking about the United States history. And our culture has always been one of resistance from the very beginning. And anything, anybody try to tell you anything other than that, it's nonsense. And so it's like, it's very sad to see our leaders not even struggling. You see Black people on the news, the newspapers, the TV is reporting these Black people's being mistreated because they let these white people protest there. But when the Black people this is the corporate media saying this, so it had to have happened and for it to be evidence for them to say that. But yet not a single elected Black leader has spoken out or said anything about that young man getting shot down. So I'm for change any way possible, man. We got to try everything.
And that's how we know that those are not leaders, that they're not our leaders. I mean, I just look at it like it was one of these court instances for Mumia a few years back, just stepping out of that courtroom, and I just remember one of the OGs saying something to the effect of, "Yeah, they're just doing 3-card Molly in there," just expressing just how theatrical. It's just like shifting things around. It is basically what I took that to mean, and that's what I've seen in that courtroom as well. And thankfully, moves have really taken a turn with regard to the court situation in the struggle to bring Mumia home, and so that's also not encouraging. But it's just to say, when you look at the state of the union address or whatever else, these so-called leaders, it's just theater. Yeah. Ultimately, they're just moving around, shifting things around. They already know how they want it to come across. It's all scripted, and we're supposed to actually give our energy to that and debate it or believe it or whatever. It's genocide. It's been the same. They've been on the same exact genocidal tack since the jump. They've been just doing it, just rinse and repeat. They have different clothing for it for different eras. So it's the view of the People's Senate that there's really no room or time to just continue to engage the theater of this genocidal system. Right. Let's figure out what our mode of governance is going to be collectively, and in the meantime, let's defend ourselves against the continued onslaught that's only ramping up, regardless of what they say.
Word. All right, Tag. Well, it was good catching up with you, man, on the work that you've been doing with the Spirit of Mandela Coalition, man. And definitely I'm going to get registered. So again, I'm going to tell the people that they can go to Black Talk Radio. Wait a minute. Do y'all have a website they could go to that's easy to remember or just a flyer?
No, absolutely. And so that everyone knows, the website updates to the website are currently in mode. So the website should see a real overhaul in the near future. But it's spiritofmandela.org, and right up there at the top, you'll see a link for People's Senate. So if you go to the People's Senate link, you'll be able to check out in more detail some of the particulars. You can see the People's Senate at a glance. And yes, please do register. We really welcome all of our sincere human beings, strugglers, organizers, revolutionaries, radicals, etc., comrades, so that we can really build this out and continue to keep it moving with all of this other nonsense that is on the horizon. We need to be as unified as possible.
I co-sign on to that. Well, Tag, keep your head on the swivel behind these enemy lines, and we'll try to catch up with you at a later date. Peace and blessings to you, brother.
You as well, brother Scotty. As always, much love and respect to Black Talk Radio Network.
And so once again, that is the People's Senate, and that webinar will be Saturday, February 18th, 2023 at noon Okay, and this is Eastern time. Yeah, it's Eastern time in case you on the Pacific Coast or wherever you may be. Shout out to our indigenous comrades out there in Hawaii. It's been a while since I've been out on those islands, but yeah. So we're gonna take a short break. But before I go, yeah, let me get myself together here. It is Black History Month, and so to help commemorate Black history, and even though we do it 24/7, I get that. I get that. But it is a month where we're all coming together to focus on certain aspects and really churn out that history, especially on social media, because a lot of people don't never have an opportunity to see that information. But anyway, to help you commemorate Black History Month, for those that don't know, I am an artist. I'm a digital artist. I could sit up here and tell you the truth and say I sold thousands of dollars worth of NFT, which is just digital art that I burned into an NFT. And people seem to like my work. So to help Black Talk Media Project, which is the parent organization of Black Talk Radio Network, raise funds for basic operating expenses. I'm loaning 4 prints from my African Children series collection, and those prints come matted and hand signed by me, and a hand signed thank you note, from me as president of the Black Talk Media Project. And all the proceeds benefit the nonprofit. I think it will be a net $15 donation after shipping, product cost, and all of that. So $15 when you get one of these prints, or all four. We got a deal: get 3 for $75, get the fourth one free, and so yeah. Go check out the page. It's on blacktalkradionetwork.com. The tab is 2023 Black History Month Art Fundraiser. You can also find information on our social media pages like Black Talk Media Project on Facebook. All right, so I'm going to take a short break, and then when I come back, I'm just going to just run down on some of the news that caught my eye. Um, Nothing really pressing right now, but definitely stay tuned. I'll be back on the other side. And you are tuned in to Black Talk Radio News with Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. And so, yeah, I need y'all help. Let me just put it out there. I need y'all help. As I was talking to Tag, y'all heard me talking about Jason look his name up, say his name, say Jason Lipscomb, because it looked like they trying to let these 5 cops get away with killing this young man in a black and brown residential community, fired over 30 shots. I know over 30 for sure because they counted them. Had the little yellow sticker by each shell from when they fired their weapons at his car, which was fleeing away from them. Then he crashes 100 yards up the road. And then on the video, you can see 2 more shell casings marked by the little yellow marker right by his car, 2 more shots. And witnesses are saying that they ran up to him and killed him. He was still alive and he was unarmed. Okay. And so there's been nothing. We haven't heard anything since last year, since last, August, I think he was killed, maybe. So it's been a while. And there's no national coverage of this. No, that they haven't released the body cam, and North Carolina has passed laws to make it more difficult. But I'm gonna have to look into it. I want to know from some of these media contacts that I have that work in the mainstream, if they have put in a freedom of information request, a FOIA, request for that body cam footage. And talking to some other activists in the county who was out there advocating for Joshua Ward, a homeless white veteran who they attacked. Gastonia police attacked while he was in a medium and used violence against him that was totally unnecessary. I think he said they spent like $20,000, I guess, in attorney fees or what, just to get that body cam footage released. Now, Joshua wasn't killed or anything. They tased him. But they killed Jason Lipscomb. They shot him down in the street like he was a mangy rabbit mutt that had to be put down. And they was looking for him for a nonviolent alleged crime, which turned out not to be a crime at all. But some stupid people playing stupid games with people's lives and calling 911 and making false reports of kidnappings. Yeah, I said it. Sometimes it be our own people. But this story needs to get out there. It needs to go viral, okay? And you can go to Gaston County Community Talks Facebook page and you can see videos and stuff about it, or you could look up in the paper. Do an internet search. But yes, we need to say his name and get his name out there like some of these other victims. Because it was just absolutely no call for that. And they didn't care if those 30 plus bullets hit somebody else. A story was told to me about a 4-year-old child. When he heard the shot start running to, his house, his father was on the porch, and then he jumped down on the ground and said, the police shooting at me. Just traumatized that community, and they just want to sweep it under the rug and act like ain't anything happening. Nothing to see here. Move on. While they've been targeting protesters and activists like myself. I was arrested last summer, for standing on the sidewalk telling these cops that these protesters have a right to be on this sidewalk. That's settled law. And the North Carolina Constitution is stronger than the U.S. Constitution on First Amendment speech rights. And you had no right to tell them. And I wouldn't move. I wouldn't move off the sidewalk. And I went to jail. My charges got dismissed because the deputy didn't show up. But then they targeted Lydia McCaskill. And they really don't like her. And tried to charge her with inciting a riot in front of Peter Wheel, which is a restaurant in Gastonia, North Carolina, when her and some other activists were on the sidewalk handing out flyers and saying Jason Lipscomb's name. Say his name. and letting people know that the Gastonia police, possibly with help from the Gaston County Sheriff's Department, and gunning down this young man in the street like that. And police tried to charge her with inciting a riot and some other trumped up stuff. And she took it to trial. And the judge dismissed the case and scolded the cop, Judge Greenlee, who's on the bench here in, I think it's District 27A, Court District 27A, but it's District Court. He threw it out. He's the same Judge Greenlee when they tried to stop us from protesting 2 years ago, lifted another judge's order saying we couldn't be within 300 feet of the courthouse doors. This is settled law. And the only way that you have rights is if you stand up for those rights. People have already fought for you to have that right. Now it's up to these generations, including my own, to maintain those rights. And if you just let them push you around, they will push you into the ground. And I don't want to live in a place like that. So please check out those cases. Marvin McCaskill, another person who I mentioned, they setting him up for trying to burn down this icon that white supremacists seem to love, Tony's Ice Cream, because it was started, before segregation, before them niggers, did them sit-ins in North Carolina and forced them to serve black people, at the front door and not make them go to the back door. See, we found it back in the 1950s. It's a white cultural icon in this southern town, Gastonia, North Carolina. Man, and so anyway, somebody did try to burn it down. It's on a security cam video, but it isn't Marvin McCaskill. I blew up the video to zoom in on the person. I guess I should say I zoomed in on the person. I got a copy of the video, and it's a person with dreadlocks like mine. Dreadlocks longer than mine, and mine are pretty long. They're past my shoulders. But you clearly see when that person bends over, and they have a more slender frame than Marvin. It's clearly not him. But they're saying they found a lid with his DNA on it. Okay? Anybody can go through anybody's trash because people have gone through people's trash to harvest some DNA. Not saying the police did it. I don't know if that person was working with the police or not. This person could just simply be a hater. Because it seems to me that Marvin McCaskill is popular with the ladies. So maybe he got some haters who hating on him. Maybe it was a lady in that video, a scorned lover perhaps, who wanted to, set him up for this. So they charging him with first-degree attempted murder, saying it was an employee in the building at 5 o'clock in the morning, saying they found his DNA, but they weren't going to disclose at the probable cause hearing. They found a second set of DNA, but claiming they can't identify the person with that DNA. That might mean they're not in the system or whatever, but that could be the person who left. Planted, literally planted. You see him in the video, take the lid off the jar and put it on the ground and left it there. Left it there. That's not Marvin in that video. And I've known this young man since 2020. And he's I would go through video of the protests and stuff. He's always out there. He's always out there peacefully protesting. And so his case needs national attention. And so please, you can go to Gaston County Community Talk's page and you can share those videos among your friends and family. This needs to go viral because this young man, life on the line, man. They trying to give him 20 years. But first they trying to force him or coerce him into a 2-year plea deal. Well, if he's so dangerous, then you gonna give him 20 years, then why are you gonna drop it down to just 2 years? Oh, he must not have been that dangerous. These are the games that the system plays, the system of slavery. Coerces over 90% of cases end up in a plea deal because they stack charges and the people get scared. And they won't take it to trial like I did, like Lydia did. Granted, ours were misdemeanors. We weren't staring down the barrel of 20 years. So I can imagine why some people will get scared and plead out because, again, then it take money. Lawyers are like anything else. You get what you pay for. And it takes money. And if you don't have that money and you don't have good representation, then guess what? Your chances increase of going into modern day slavery. So these are very important stories that's happening here locally that I thought I should bring to my, dare I say, international audience. Gaston County Community Talk, you can find those stories. Please, we need help. We need help here. Black people are under assault. That said, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Please support the work of the Black Talk Media Project. Like Gaston County Community Talk, that's one of our projects. We have another similar project, RVA Soul, that covers Richmond, Virginia. And then, of course, we have Black Talk Radio Network, which has an international audience, but primarily our listeners are based here in the United States. But we need this work costs money too. And so you can get some really beautiful art. And of course, I'm the artist, but people told me it's really good art for a donation to the Black Talk Media Project towards a good cause. Because guess what? The system is not going to fund an abolitionist media organization like the Black Talk Media Project. All right, with that said, y'all be safe out here. Keep your head on a swivel behind these enemy lines where they still practicing slavery. And, and it's not even really race-based no more. They can put anybody into slavery. And so you have skin in this game. I don't care what color you are. And, even if you feel like you don't, you should be against the enslavement of anyone. All right, with that said, peace and blessings to all. Good night.